Hi, everybody. I'm Creative Katie Karen Burchill. My secret to a great mixed media art journal page? Lots of layers. Let's get started. So I'm working in my favorite Canson mixed media 9 by 12. I take it off the coils. I'll link that video showing you how to do that because I like working flat, but I don't like getting the paint and things in the coils. I like to keep that clean. So I take a piece of painter's tape, I rub it on my sweater or my pants so it doesn't quite stick so hard. And then I'm ready to prepare the page. And I'm giving this a coat of gesso that kind of seals the paper and helps me be able to blend the paint more easily wet on wet because it's not soaking into the paper. So I'm using bright yellow, yellow green, and light blue permanent. And I'm mixing them using the same makeup sponge across the page. And I'm not worried about that it's even or smooth. In fact, I want to beef up the texture and the unpredictability of it, I guess, and mix those colors. I want some areas that are mostly going to be yellow, some that are going to be, mixed. Variation is the key. And this is a really simple way of putting down the base color and getting some layering happening all in one motion. Remember, this is all about the layers, and we are going to create a beautiful background that you can use with a focal image like mine or something else. Then I'm adding a little bit of green in there, just beefing up the color and adding that interest. This is making layers. It looks like there's more going on here than a basic color. Then I've got cobalt blue here, and I'm just adding a little bit of that. It's not really changing the color, but there's that depth. There's more contrast there, and it just suddenly got a whole lot more interesting. I'm putting this kind of sparingly, but building the layers. Stamping. Let's get on stamping. And this is Songs of the Sea texture stamps. And I love this. Great all purpose, not just for under the sea, although that's where we're going. And I'm braying on the cobalt blue paint onto the stamp and then just pressing and stamping. I don't want to get a perfect image of stamping. I just want some texture, some variation in there, and yes, another layer. I'm not putting it on acrylic block because I don't want the rectangular shape. I just want kind of imperfection. And really, that builds a lot of interest when it's not so precise. Then from the Songs of the Sea, another stamp set. This one I think says Song of the Sea, and it's on a scroll. And I'm stamping with my archival ink. And I'm going up and down and side to side. I'm not too worried about wanting to read this later. This is just going to be, you guessed it, one other layer, something that's going to peek through. And some of these are going to show a little bit more. If you want to make it show a little bit more and get darker, use black acrylic paint instead of the ink. This is one of my favorite stencils. It's from the Crafter's Workshop. It's called Chicken Wire Reversed. I've had it forever. And here I'm going in with, I believe it's Hooker's Green. I didn't want too much variation, and I'm just adding that kind of bubbly because I'm going for an under the sea view because I know I'm going to be putting the starfish on it. I had decided that before I started my background, and it kind of guided my questions, my choices along the way. Wasn't giving me enough contrast, so I grabbed my black acrylic paint and I'm going in with the same stencil. And now you're getting some contrast, and it's just another layer. But I like having that green that's lighter and more faded, and then the black. It just, again, one more sense of layers by using the same stencil using two different colors. So we have hugely interesting background with lots of layers here. Now I wanted to add a little bit of white, so I have this bubble. This is a stamp that I made with fun foam, and I stuck the fun foam onto a empty gum container. I'm just adding those bubbles. So here we have used simply paint and ink to create at least 7 or 8 layers. And that is the secret to an interesting background and an interesting art journal page. So now we're going to work a little bit on the focal image. Now I am tracing this starfish with my Stabilo all pencil. And we are going to do a technique here. It's kind of like negative painting. We're going to make the starfish appear from the background by activating the Stabilo all pencil. It's water soluble, and when you rub water on it, it's going to kind of blend out. You're going to see how me do that. So even without adding any physical texture, this starfish is going to jump out from the background. Now, spoiler alert here. My vision for having this and then putting the other starfish on top, the plan, it really didn't work. You're not going to really notice these starfish later on. So if you were redoing this and everything else was the same, you were going to continue doing what I did, this is a step that you could leave out. Or alternatively, this is a step where you stop. These become the focal image and maybe give a wash to the starfish with aqua, with teal, or paint them out and paint them orange, do a wash of orange on top. There's lots of ways you could do it, but combining this with what I do here, in my mind, didn't work. So I want the starfish and I want them to be this coral orange color. And I am using, I believe, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, a little bit of orange, maybe some Naples yellow in here. And I'm mixing it off camera. I've got the little bits of paint on there and I'm just mixing it wet on this piece of copy paper. I just want a base color, that coral burnt orange, burnt sienna color, because I know that's going to really pop off the background colors that I've chosen. There, look at that. Oof, looks great. So once I get the right color combination, I'm doing a couple sheets because I know I'm going to need that much. That's why I didn't just go into my gel prints or my collage papers, because I wanted them to be similar, close enough similar, although not identical. And I really didn't have like 2 sheets that would work in my collage paper stash. I have lots of collage paper in that stash, but not the amount that I would need. And I wanted them all to be the same. So here I've kind of done the same thing with the makeup sponge. I wanted to add a little bit more interest, a lot more layers here. So I come in with another stencil from the Crafters Workshop called Mermaid Tail. FYI, there is a link to the TCW Shopify store and a coupon code in the description box if you want to go check out their stencils. Most of the stencils that I use come from them. I love their stencils. So this is called Mermaid's Tail, and I'm just using the burnt sienna or alizarin crimson or just one of the colors that I've already mixed in there. I'm not introducing another color. It's kind of tone on tone. It's a very subtle, but I find good patterning on there. After giving it a quick dry, I am tracing out that same starfish. Now, with the starfish that I did with the Stabilo all pencil, if I had gone smaller here, it might have worked. My vision might have worked, but I didn't. So here I'm just putting the 2 sheets one on top of another and tracing once and cutting twice. Love how that pops off the background. And then I don't have enough for full ones, but I'm going to trace some half ones, and they're going to go off the page. just like that. I do play with the composition a little bit, both on camera and off camera, till I get what I think looks good. Now I'm using my angle brush and I am shading with black acrylic paint around the outside edge. This is going to make that red starfish pop off the background. And it's going to give the illusion of texture. It's going to look a little bit more 3D. It's going to stand out from the background. And I'm just going to go around them. Now, I could have glued the starfish down first and then done this. It doesn't matter. This is an easier way of doing it, especially if you're learning to shade. This is a good way of doing it because it's a little more forgiving. And look how they pop compared to the ones that haven't been done. Then I'm adding a little bit of script stamp on them. Again, I want to build those layers. Remember, I said the layers are the secret to it all. It's what makes the page. And you get little bits of whatever layer peeking through. Look at that. Love, love, love how that just made the starfish as opposed to just painting it red with one color with no stamping or stenciling on top of it. So then I'm going to glue this down with my fluid matte medium. And I'm being careful because the Stabilo oil pencil that I put on there, it's water soluble. It's going to move when you wet it. So if I was to just go and rub right on it, it may reactivate and smudge. And so I'm trying to avoid that by gentle application of the matte media here when I'm gluing this down. And I'm layering up the starfish, some are going on top of each other, and that again gives you that layered look. So you can see here the starfish that I did with the Stabilo oil pencil, you really don't see them, the starfish there. There's black interesting marks, so it added something to the background, but not what was in my head. Now here I kind of make a mistake in the placement of this because these two starfish are pretty much one on top of the other, same orientation, same everything, and I wanted to peel it up, but it had already dried and I wasn't able to do it. But I solved that problem. I cut out a tracer from that center of that starfish, and this time, instead of the Stabilo oil pencil, I'm using my Inktense pencil. Now, Inktense pencil is water activated, like the Stabilo, but once it's activated, it becomes permanent because it's ink. So I'm not going to have to worry about smudging or smearing down the road. And FYI, you can buy the Inktense pencils, just the black or the navy. So here I'm reactivating it just like I did the Stabilo oil pencil, the only difference being this one will be permanent. You can go into an art store and buy the Inktense pencils, just the black or just the navy. So here I'm just activating it because again, I want it to look like it's 3D, that it has some dimension to it, even though pretty much everything here is flat. I've not added texture paste. I've not added, any depth. So I grabbed my fine line applicator bottle and I am tracing some circles on the starfish. Kind of want that design that's on my pattern. And my bottle, the paint in here was probably in here for 2 years. And I need to empty out the paint and remix it after 2 years. So I was having a bit of a problem getting it to come out. So I come in with a little bit of gold. So between gold circles and black circles, I'm just adding, again, that next layer. It really does look like it is 3D in real life. And I think that the shimmer of the gold really adds to that effect. When you're building layers, you have to be willing to risk what you might already like. That's the hardest part because we like what we see and we think, oh, if I add something to it, maybe I won't like it. But maybe you will, and you won't know until you try. So here again, I'm taking the white acrylic paint in my fine line applicator and just doing kind of line work around the starfish. Again, to make it stand out and adding, yes, another layer. I'm trying hard not to get my wrist in any of the wet paint. I went to my sentiment pack. This is the Ocean Commotion sentiment pack, and I found a sentiment, "We dream in colors borrowed from the sea." And instead of keeping it in the rectangular shape, I cut it apart and I'm kind of layering it up. And why am I putting it here? Because remember those two starfish that I didn't like my placement, that they were just too much one on top of the other, exactly the same orientation? By covering that up, I'm kind of hiding my mistake. And I'm gluing it down with my fluid matte medium. After a quick dry, I grab my black Posca pen and I'm just outlining it just to make it stand out. So go and make layers. Make 5, 7 layers on a background. Grab your stamps, your stencils, experiment, play. Until next time, go get creative.